You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is healing and anti-aging, new stem cell research. Whether an accident, repetitive stress injury, or getting knocked about in sports, how to deal with pain and inflammation and how to speed up healing and recovery becomes top priority. Have you also noticed that as you age, the healing process tends to slow down? My special guest today is Dr. Rhee, a sports chiropractor and pioneer in non-invasive regenerative medicine with over 20 years of experience. He's the author of the book, The Future of Regenerative Medicine, Unlocking the Potential of Topical Stem Cell Therapy. So welcome aboard, Dr. Tommy. Lovely to talk to you.
Sandy, I am excited about this conversation and interesting enough, Australia, huh?
Yep. But we are a small globe. It's funny how close together people are becoming with technology. That we could talk to someone on the other side of the world, like they're just next door.
It feels
Amazing.
like it feels like, hey, let's cut this show and let's go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I just had mine, but thank you for the offer. So, tell us about what stem cells do in the healing process and how the system has evolved to what you're doing today and why it is less invasive.
Well, I guess the big question is that how do we regenerate our tissues? How do we get that process where we can feel younger again and then we really recover better? So either from an injury or workout or that old nasty aging process, we need to get those cells back to its normal state. So we have in our bodies like these things called adult stem cells in some form, if it's in the muscles, tendons, ligaments, we have those type of cells that helps us regenerate our own tissue and then, command that one-to-one ratio, meaning that we want to recycle the old with the new cell. We want to keep going with that one-to-one. So our body's in homeostasis. We always have that type of tension force and the ability to keep on moving forward. But the problem is that as we get older or we age or we get injured, that ratio gets declined. You may have two damaged tissue for one rebuilding tissue. So one of the big causes of that is poor signaling. And when you look at stem cells, people think that these cells are going to somehow differentiate or they change into your target tissue. Now, these stem cells that you hear about for these injectables, when you go to like a clinic that says, I'm doing stem cell therapy, well, you can get it from your own body's tissue, and it's stored in your fat tissue called adipose or your bone marrow. The problem with that is that that stem cell has been aged just like our tissues age. So it doesn't give you proper signaling that you want from your own tissue. You need it from a younger source. And that source is the umbilical cord, the tissue around the umbilical cord called Wharton's jelly. It's got a high concentration of that mesenchymal stem cell that takes care of that damaged tissue to signal it for a brighter, stronger, younger signal. Well, when people start talking about that type of mechanism of that stem cell turning into your existing tissue, it's difficult because when you go to biology, you have to think about DNA, replication, and you think like we have these set of codes that are going to turn into our tissue. And if you mismatch those codes, it turns into something weird. We don't want to get involved with tumor formation or some type of odd tissue. So that really doesn't play effect when you look at regenerative medicine or stem cell therapy. What you really want to think about is a signal. The signals in the form of peptides, hormones, you know, these kind of like these information, just like how we have our body have these signalers in our bodies to do our job, to do like proper function in our organs. Well, just like stem cells, we have signals. And that's what we're trying to achieve here. So as you see the world evolving in regenerative medicine from stem cell turning into your existing tissue, that was a theory. Now it's going into signaling, which is more properly aligned with science. When you have a signal, you're waking up your existing tissue to do its job. The cells that we have are sitting dormant. They call it senescence. It sits there and just waits for information, but it can't do nothing because you need to increase that thing called the telomeres, or it doesn't have that kind of information or the enzyme. So
Is
you
it
have
a
to
bit,
give that.
Sorry
I'm
for
sorry, go ahead.
interrupting. Is it a little bit like a library with books that are closed? And when you say signaling, you're opening the books and creating the message transfer so that the cells then do a different job or know what to do rather than sleeping. Is it that an analogy?
It's okay. So as we have our cells, we have these receptors on each cells, and our cells have some type of shape to it, and we're trying to like fit a circle to a circle, not a square to a circle. So this information in form of like peptides, like a protein chain, or some type of like cytokine, or some information that has the capability of matching up to the target tissue, and that target tissue starts activating, starts doing its job. So these cells sit there, and let's say that you have a tendon, a tenocyte that's supposed to make more tendons, right? Well, this target tissue isn't doing its job because there's no signal. It's like a cell phone. You can have a conversation, but when you lose the connection, the message exists, but the connection is weak. You have to increase the signal. And that signal is in the form of this whole world of regenerative medicine. So when you get that signal brighter, stronger, well, now it's going to the target tissue, and here comes the actual revolution of the, recycling the bad cell, and here comes a better new cell, and that's what you want, the one-to-one ratio. So that's where this world is going into. So now the molecule is not a live cell with a nucleus; it's a smaller cell. Now you're looking at what they call a cell-free, meaning there's no nucleus. Now the diameter is smaller. Now you can do a topical transdermal application that takes that place of an injection to go into that deep tissue by a lotion or a cream. And that will get down through saturation and then to the target tissue to do the signaling. And that's what's fantastic. No more injections, no more high cost, and it's a simple home application. So that's what the excitement of this whole future of regenerative medicine.
Yes, less invasive because I have a needle phobia. I always have in the back of my mind what is in that stuff. They're puncturing my skin. It's getting into the inner chambers of my body where my body doesn't actually have a choice, does it? So, other things can be introduced in a process of injecting something
Yeah.
that happens to be there at the same time that maybe your body can react to. The immune system could be triggered. Lots of side effects can happen with various drugs and things that are injectable. However,
Hmm.
when you use the skin, and this is what we discovered too with electromagnesium, you can absorb magnesium ions that are dissolved within the mixture of the fluid and the cream and the lotion, the spray, however you like to put it on, but it absorbs well. It sits inside the epidermal layer, and the body has a choice when there are no skin barrier, when they don't break the skin barrier artificially. When we're working with the natural system, the body keeps it in the reservoir of the skin and draws upon it as is needed. It's like a beautiful smorgasbord of the nutrients that you need that are available, and the body's making the choices. And there's nothing to digest, nothing to inject, and so there are no negative side effects. It's a wonderful system with so much intelligence, the skin being the largest organ of the body. And so it's very exciting for me. This is like a new frontier of research in very kind type of medicine and nutrition. When people's digestive system isn't working well, when things are starting to break down and not function electrically, and so I'm really excited about what you're doing from that perspective because of the synergy. The other thing I that came to mind while you were talking is the connection with the messaging system of the body and chiropractic. So I was interested in how you moved or morphed into this new different kind of genre, but there is a connection because all the electrical nervous system and how the messaging travels, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing, the connection with chiropractic, especially what I do, I'm a sports chiropractor. So my my resume started at UCLA, at the athletic department, and these kids, after they leave college, they go in the pros or the Olympics, and it's all about their training and their recovery. So I was involved with their recovery system and in all the available type of modalities or treatment protocols. And that was back then in the 2005, 6, it was prolotherapy, if you remember that. That's where they inject like sugar water and your body reacts to and then lays down more tissue for healing. And then it went to PRP, then it went to stem cell where it's at now. But the vehicle's always been the injectable, the needle. Well, here's the one thing that's difficult about when you look at injection. You have a primary injury site, and then when you penetrate the skin to the tissue to the damaged area with the syringe, well, you just made a secondary injury site. So now you have to actually deal with two places where you have these injuries. So it's counterproductive to do these kind of like injections during the season. So they like to do it after the season or like,
For the
when they're
for pain relief, you mean injectables
pa- yeah,
to
all that.
reduce inflammation? Would that be like an anti-inflammatory drug?
Yeah,
Typically,
most of the things when you hear about, athletes when they do like an injection before the game, it's more of a pain management. It's the actual masking the injury. So what they're trying to do is numb the area so they're able to play that game. There's no regenerative component of it. There's no like really healing pos. It's just surviving that season, that game
numbing and
for that
dumbing.
particular. There you go,
Yep.
numbing and dumbing. Perfect. Yeah. So once I started seeing that, it was because of me being around these athletes, I understood that there were some promising factors because of that possibility of getting stem cell, but the antagonizing is that you can't do it during the season. So that's why I started developing this kind of process. Like there's got to be a better delivery mechanism. And
Gentle.
that's, yep, gentle. And then more importantly, they can do it on their own. They don't need a physician. They don't need to be in an environment where they have to
Yep.
be in a clean area. They can just apply it at home or
Safer.
before them. Yes, safer. So that's where how this whole world from me being a sports guy move all the way into a topical. And if it works with pro athletes, it's going to work for everyday people. So that's how it's moving into this kind of like what you say, marketing area. So now I'm talking to everybody about this.
So, what are you actually giving the skin then as far as the stem cells go? It's not the actual stem cells themselves, is it? It's a byproduct.
Exactly, yeah. So these cells, they secrete the signaling, right? So the EVs, extracellular vesicles, they call it, or they call it ECMs, a matrix. And they have those little type of like no nucleus, but just information encapsulated in the form of a ship, like a little baby ship called exosomes. Exosomes are like little carriers that have a membrane and a cytoplasm,
It's
but there's nothing in
a
there.
lipid. It's a lipid molecule, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the fats are like bags. They hold stuff. That you can get an exosome which has garbage in it, which is garbage on the way out in a bag, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, but with the neat thing about that is that that particular carrier will put information of like, cytokines or some information that you want the target tissue to have to do its job. It's lacking that information or the tasking. So that's why you can just take that little information, put it next to your cell that you need, and it's called a paracrine, right? It's a cell-to-cell communication. And then there you go. It turns into its proper mechanism to what it's supposed to do.
That's pretty amazing. So, how old is this research? How widespread is it becoming? Is it just like right at the beginning?
Oh yeah. When I developed this, there was nobody doing this thing. So, but the interesting thing is that when I developed this, there was so much science behind stem cells and differentials and EVs. There was a lot of science behind that. Now, the delivery mechanism was always injectables. So that was the tasking. How do you deliver through the three layers of skin, especially the top layer, stratocorneum? You've got to get it through that thick layer. Well, there's already a product out there the FDA utilizes to deliver drugs, and that's DMSO. DMSO is
Yep.
utilized right now. So you just take the right amount of percentage of it, enough that you don't get the side effect for the taste and the smell, but enough to actually disturb that bilipid layer and that stratocorneum, and then deliver those small molecules through the skin into the target tissue. And so where it's at right now, I mean, I developed it. I'm the first. I got a patent on the thing. It's moving, and then there are competitors out there. They're trying to copy what I'm doing here, which
It's
I
the world we
love.
live in.
Yeah, but I don't mind that. It's
Yeah.
okay. They can do what they want to, but they're not going to perfect it based on my formula because they don't know the processing of this whole tasking. And believe it or not, a lot of providers that are in this world of stem cell therapy, regenerative medicine, they don't really know the mechanism. They don't understand it. They just say it works. Trust me. Here, I got a white lab coat. Pay your money, do the injection, take care of yourself.
Just believe. Yeah.
Believe. And that's why it's good right now because a lot of your people in your audience are good like absorbers. They can take this information from the show. There's AI
They're
stuff.
already absorbing magnesium through the skin.
There's some neat things about that,
We
but
don't
it's
have to convince them it's possible.
yeah, and but the thing is that there's so much information out there that they can get on their own. They have to listen to your show and your advice, and then they take it to its proper use from that point on.
Yes, so there's a certain level of when you're passionate about something, you really go into things deeply and you live it and breathe it and you want it to be the best it can be for people. And so that was my experience with the magnesium journey, how to make this method of delivery easy, convenient, pleasant, like you want to do it every day, and it becomes part of your normal daily self-care habit. And it's not treated like a medicine. Oh, it's something yucky, something distasteful, feels terrible, it's not absorbing very well. I'm going to leave it in my cupboard till the cramp comes back, wait for the problems, treat it like an aspirin. And that's not at all our philosophy, is your dietary magnesium, like other important nutrients, are used every day. Your body is constantly using up resources, and you can't treat valuable nutrition like a medicine to get over a hill, to fix a crisis situation where a medicine may be appropriate, but you wouldn't do that long term, would you? It's a different philosophy.
Yeah. But you know, the neat thing about that is there's so much information out there, and you just have to be on that radar to figure out who has the right information. How can I obtain the proper information that takes care of what I want done to my body?
Yes, and with something that's benign or it's not harmful, if you use more, it doesn't matter. With something that is very kind to the body, you can't make a mistake. It's easy for people to self-care, to do something for themselves, and it gives them a sense of empowerment rather than being stuck and, dependent on this person, that therapy, that doctor. They can just find something that works for them in their daily life and perhaps avoid more medication or, surgeries or whatever else may need to be done as the body breaks down. We want to prevent the body breaking down. We want to age gracefully. So that's the whole goal, right? When you have a muscle issue or injury, something that, hurts and causes inflammation, obviously you want to fix it fast. You want the pain to go away. So you have certain strategies at that time. Magnesium also helps with that. But as we age, as we said earlier, the process of healing slows down a little bit. We also find we need more magnesium than ever before. The reserves and the stores in the cell tissue, in the tissue areas of the body, the muscle and the bone, store less. So the metabolism slows down, everything slows down. So can you explain how the byproducts of the stem cells actually work in regenerative medicine to rekindle that metabolic process of, you know, in healing and repair, that the body has to remove the waste products, counteract oxidative stress, restore the balance, restore the metabolism to make the electrical energy that fuels everything, the brain, the heart, the whole vascular system, like everything in the body. Cell regeneration itself is very hungry for energy resources. So, how does the byproduct of stem cells work in that system?
Yeah. Okay. So the byproduct, meaning that the EVs, right, the extracellular
Yep,
vesicles.
yep.
So think about what you have. You think about a damaged tissue that's dying. You know, they call it apoptosis, right? It's the cell's dying. Well, when the cell is dying and it becomes like a non-functioning cells, well, think about what you have. I guess the best analogy is like you have trash. The trash is smelling, it's leaking things, right? And then you think about that particular cell and it's leaking and it's smelling like a decaying type of trash. Well, that's that type of like free radicals. You think about everything what it's trying to do. It's trying to like do it's capable of like excreting out its toxins and it affects the general area. So when you have that byproduct going into its destruction mode and it's not regenerating the tissue, well, now you have this kind of like this toxic area that's not getting its proper blood flow. It doesn't have the lymphatic system to really remove this excess tissue. You've got to get everything working back in its unison. So when you don't have that proper signal that really tells your existing tissue to do its job, it stalls things. It's like a conveyor belt in an assembly line, right? One thing shuts down, it backs everything up. So you have to restore one of those components that are backing up. So when you get that right signal, the signal turns your existing tissue, that one that's delayed in this conveyor belt mechanism, in this conveyor system. And here you go. Now you're turning everything back on. And here comes the removal of that metabolic waste. Here comes the regeneration of the new tissue. And now you're restoring communication. Now you're restoring circulation. Now you're restoring actual like nerve function. It has a play with everything. It's about getting the right balance. And that balance can be disturbed by a poor signal. That signal in the form of anything you think of in hormones, in peptides, in everything, magnesium, anything, it needs the signal. Once you get the signal in there, it does its normal function and now it's in the right environment. So that's what's really crucial is that when you have one piece of that puzzle and it's going down in a struggle, well, it's going to affect everybody else around it.
Yes, and also when the uh, cell accumulates too many waste products, it has an automatic function to just slow because more metabolism causes more wastes. So the body is trying to help or protect the mitochondria of the cell, isn't it? To not overload the system with too many wastes that cause too many free radicals, too many reactive oxygen species, and the things that break us down very fast. We want to neutralize and get rid of it. So the electrical system is really important to keep functioning properly. Signaling, the exosomes from the stem cells sound very exciting to help that process of, I guess, waste management, isn't it? It's like looking after your gut. That's the macro version of the micro version of the cell. It's the same factory, the biological factory of I produce energy, I produce waste, got to get rid of the waste, got to put more nutrients in, more resources in, and around it goes. If
Yeah.
something gets blocked or stuck and the signals don't work and the messages don't work, then the whole factory slows down. We
Yeah.
get a traffic jam.
Yeah. So just think about like our body is a balancing act. Our body has a great ability to balance everything from acidity to alkaline, and it knows how to handle things. But as we lose that signaling, well, one of the workers are not going to do its job. Now you're going to start getting off balance. You may have a little bit of excess fluid because you don't have that ability to like kind of get that vasodilation from either maybe a nitric oxide engagement or something that has to do with a one component that affects the whole systemic body. And that's why you have to be crucially like understanding that those little deficiencies are the ones that we target. And then the neat thing about where I'm at, it's about like letting your body do its own innate intelligence, just by inviting your body for a signal. The signal that you're depleted in, increase it. And then here you go. Now you're back to your own body's ability instead of introducing to a drug, a chemistry, or something that's in kind of invasive with many side effects. And then sure, you may solve one problem, but those side effects affect three other like chains down the road. So then now you're dealing with those side effects.
Yeah.
So it's that awful like that tumbling effect of taking one condition and creating four other conditions.
Yes, just from numbing and dumbing. Don't take the shortcuts because it's a big price to pay for longer term damage. Because as you cover something up, you're not addressing the core issue. And there may be some degeneration happening that's not being addressed, that's not being helped. Something's missing and it keeps degenerating, but you would never know because you've covered up all the symptoms, you've covered up the pain, you've covered up the inflammation until it starts to get more acute and then you can't cover it up anymore and then things get more serious. So this is a progression, isn't it? We've got to go always to the core of what's causing the problem, kind of like a technician or a mechanic trying to solve the problem with why your car's not working.
That's it right there. Pedantically.
Yeah. So, as we're nearing the end of the podcast, could you just give us a quick example of someone you have helped using this therapy? So, what was their issue? Um, how did, what process did they go through? How long did it take? And what was the end result?
I think the perfect example is probably my first athlete of the quarterback, and he was dealing with a grade three tendonitis in his Achilles tendon, and it was bilateral, both left and right. He just trained a little too excessively, pushed himself hard, and he was entering into the season. So once you get into the season, now his only issue was it was his last year contract. He didn't want to report his injury because it's kind of negotiation component of it that he doesn't want to use that for like some type of negative effect on his little, pricing of his contract. So he's concerned about that. So with him, in Regen, we applied it on his Achilles, took it to his facility, and then he applied it twice a day. With that, he had great success, no more progression into his injury. In fact, he did better than he was supposed to, didn't report it, renegotiated his contract, and more importantly, it healed. So that was a great expense in the world of trusting me in my ability to get him back to original, like a functioning Achilles tendon. So with that, it was an easy kind of transition from a pro athlete that's a very aggressive into a general person that doesn't do that aggressive stuff, but just a everyday person that just does walk and stuff. So because of that aggressiveness to the new patient or the everyday person, it was an easy transition. So with that guy, he was probably my first and really my great R&D guy.
It's funny how our friends and family come in to be the volunteers in any new discovery, new
Yeah.
invention.
Oh, let me tell you, I was nervous because he was depending on me to get him past this point, and his family, income, future, it all depended on this particular injury. So that therapy was awesome. So it came out perfect.
It sounds like it would go very well hand in hand with the application of magnesium also transdermally because magnesium is the resource for that electrical nervous system. The, the stem cell exosomes are the messaging system. So that's like a hand and a glove, isn't it? The two must go together in the whole process. So we don't get enough magnesium from the food supply these days. When we have stress, we lose excessive magnesium. And this especially applies to sport people. People go to the gym a lot, do a lot of physical exercise. So it's not just emotional stress, it's can be physical stress or shift working, not getting enough sleep. Lots and lots of different stresses in our life can deplete magnesium. And so, if we haven't got enough resources, even the messaging may not work well enough and can definitely be improved when the right resources are available to make that electrical energy when the blocks are removed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
it's a
agree on that.
package of nutrition that all needs to come together in
Yeah.
a
It's a form
holistic
of,
way.
yeah. It opens up the channels and then it helps like communicate and restores things back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And also the gut lining has its own set of stem cells, doesn't it? And people have IBS and irritable bowel syndrome. They've eroded the way a lot of the mucosal lining and a lot of that layer where the immune system is generated and the stem cells. And then that hurts the health as well. It's very important to keep your stem cells healthy, the ones you make yourself, right?
Yeah.
Keep your gut working well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a lovely chat and so informative. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And just let people know where they can find you to find out more about what you've got.
All right, Sandy. So you can look me up. I've got a website, www.rheegen.com. And then you can learn about the topical transdermal stem cell cream. And then I wrote a book, of course, you mentioned that. You can go to Amazon and just hit that title, The Future of Regenerative Medicine, and just type my last name again, Rhee, and it pops up. And you can learn about stem cells. It's a 100 page book, real simple to read. There's a science component of it, and there's a layman's side of it. And then, if you think it's too complicating to read the science side of it, just read the actual layman's version of this guy named Jeff and his journey through this whole process of learning about stem cells. And then other than that, you can reach me social media. There's a whole bunch of places out there. Just Google my name, right?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Dr. Tommy Rhee. Lovely to have spoken with you today.
Thank you very much. It was an enjoyable conversation.
Bye-bye. I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.